Namaskar, Saini. Thank you so much for hopping on this interactive session on a Saturday evening. I know we all have busy schedules, but I'm really glad that many of you were able to carve out time for this very, very important topic. And this has been a topic for at least I've been directly involved on this for last few years, especially in context of, hey, India chaise आप particular दो आसान festival मनाउनु suddenly when you look at US location based ताक छु अलग यवान, and there has been a lot of confusion within the community, and uh, I've been sort of understanding this topic myself over the last few years, and the more I learn about it, it is very clear to me that Son calendar chulni is solar, and it is not just like location plays an equally important role. You know, the sunrise, the sunset, and what tithi is on that particular date. So you know, it is all very centric to where you are. So we thought it will be good to do this session to just share some of the basics about, you know, do kitkan chi wan calculate karne, location kitkan chi atmans importance wan, solar versus lunisolar uses on calendar chi atmans kya chi differences. And we also have a panel of experts who are here to respond with any questions that you may have. The way we will do this session today, Anil Hashia Ji, who's also Zone 9 director, he's been again a very strong advocate of this. He volunteered to do this presentation. So we'll first walk through his presentation, then we'll open it up with Q&A. We also have some experts here. Puneet Joshi Ji from Vijayeshwar Jantri Publications from India. He's been part of the initiative, and he has joined here. And we may also be joined by some more advocates like Satyabhushan Ji. I am not seeing him yet here, but yeah, I think he may be here joining. Okay, I think he's here. So we have all the experts here. So hopefully we should be able to address any questions after the presentation from Anil Hashia Ji. Anil Ji, over to you.
Namaskar. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. Namaskar, Sadni. I'm Anil Hashia. I'm newly minted Zone 9 director. So Uparji asked me to create a slide and a presentation around this topic. I'm also passionate about this topic, and I put an effort, and Uparji really helped me kind of navigate what were the requirements so that I align to those requirements. Thanks for being here, and let me get started. So the topic of today's presentation is more around understanding basics of tithis, and how do we leverage that from our beloved Jantri, because we are all familiar with our Jantri, but some of the struggles around that is how do we even see it, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. I started with the concept itself, right? Aaj like today's date is, I will try to be like Hindi, English, Kosher, whatever comes to my mind in my flow, I will try to be, because I know there might be a lot of non-Kashmiri speaking audience also. So today day is Feb 8th, right? Saturday, 6 p.m. Now, if we have to follow it through our Jantri, it's kya bana? It's one of Kosher Poet, Maag, Zun, Pach, Baham, Batwar. Actually, Batwar is based on our own community name, so special day for us. And it's Saptarishi 5100. Saptarishi Samvat. That is the name of our calendar. Okay. Agar English poet vanav, that's Gregorian, and if the Persian poet vanav, ya Hindi poet vanav, ya Sanskrit poet vanav, that's Saptarishi Samvat. So we basically current year to 5100. The next year use Navrepati, that will be 5101. So I will be, Uparji will be moderating the session, Mr. P, and I will be presenting. I am the Zone 90. And the format we are going to follow is, I think Upar already elaborated on it. Like for 45 minutes, we will basically, I will present it. And at that time, we won't take any Q&A. And after that, most welcome, we can go over Q&A session. So I put a little effort to create this first slide because there are certain symbolism in our culture that I wanted to highlight, because it's very important to highlight that symbolism to create that energy and enthusiasm. So I started with, if you look on the top, it's basically Om Namah Shivaya, but it's written in Sharda script that originated in Kashmir, and the name KOA also is written in Sharda script. So I put a little effort there to actually promote our Sharda script in the process. Okay. Now question is, why is it called Saptarishi Samvat, right? And what does the word Samvat mean, and where does the word Saptarishi come from, right? So I want you to kind of imagine yourself in Kashmir 5,000 years ago in a place called Vesarnag. It's a beautiful place. I was lucky to visit this place. It's called Vesarnag for a reason. There's a Nag there, a beautiful spring, and Vesar is a place where you are doing back and forth of exchanging thoughts, exchanging ideas, right? So at that place, like the legend says, that our great ancestors sat and looked up this northern sky, where we have this very famous constellation. It's called Ursa Major in English, or Big Dipper, but in Sanskrit it's called Saptarishi, named after 7 rishis, right? And they took that alignment at that point of time and said, you know what, at this alignment, we are all together, we're semi-steady, and we'll do a new beginning. So calendars are always a new beginning at certain point in time. So that certain point in time was the alignment of Saptarishi, of Saptarishi as a constellation. And these are Impetitim Brahmanas. They looked at that constellation and said, hey, we are going to start at this time as the first year of this calendar. And this picture to the picture to the right is the Saptarishi calendar, where the names are the rishis, Saptarishis, like Bhrigu, Vishisht, and you can search yourself, you will get, and they kind of revolve around Dhruv Tara, that's the pole star. There's a fascinating story. All these constellations have a fascinating story. Even when I was a kid, I read the story of Dhruv Tara, a very fascinating story. I will recommend you to kind of go over that story, very fascinating. And then this picture, actually, incidentally, when I was in Kashmir, I lived in Kashmir till 1990. As far as somebody actually sent a Navre greeting with a colored picture of a Navre card. And that card, so when growing up, this is how the Navre Thal would look like in 1980s. Atmara Shalpar Ink Asan, there was Kalam Asan, there was Jantri Asan, there was Asan Zamdod. And while growing up, it was drilled down to us, Arshu Navre, the first thing you need to do is look at this Thal and pray for Orzutu Dorkot, Vidya Orzutu Dorkot. And that's something I also try to inculcate with my kids, at least on an average. So the Jantri itself had a very symbolic relevance to us as a cultural because it is the beginning of a new year, and we look at this as we start the new year, right? So, and then this is obviously how the Jantri cover would look like, the printed version that we're gonna talk about. And then the new year that's upcoming after Navre will be 5101. Okay, so that's the, so I will move to the next slide now. Okay. उते उपार्जन कोर में ये present है यार से ये presentation करें the first thing I always ask, like, which is my dad used to always tell me, hey yaar so once a capture you karun, that's very important, right? And then in the corporate world I also realized that whenever you have to present something, you need to really ask some relevant questions, and there are various formats of these questions, but this is one that I like. So first is what are we trying to do in this presentation? I think the goal is simple, right? The goal is that to enable folks to follow a US-based Jantri that aligns with US time zones, and actually it's our time zone, right? So each time zone, you need to make sure Jantri aligns to that time zone, because we have 4 time zones, and then instead of India time zone, because historically, for simplicity reasons, and also because we didn't have availability, right? We typically used to follow Indian Standard Time, but we want to change that because now we have this Jantri that we can also publish using US time zone, so we want to change that. Now, question is, why do we even want to do that, right? Number one is cultural alignment, right? We want a cultural alignment based on like Suri Siddhanta is the principle that drives this Jantri, right? That's followed by Hindus. We want to align to that, right? And that principle says that you have to align your Jantri based on the sunrise at a given point of time. So the sunrise will vary because the earth is rotating, right? So sunrise in India will be at a different point and sunrise in US will be at a different point. So it makes sense to align it with the sunrise in US versus sunrise in India, right? Then other is youth engagement, right? We want to energize our youth to look at this in a very energetic and emphatic manner. For example, I showed it to my son, and he was like, "Wow, I didn't know that it was 5,000 years old." And he also knows different calendars, and he was able to quickly relate to it. But we need to promote it better. And Kushir Kochak saying, which I like it, Kokur Tachan, Poot Hechan. So in Hindi, it's saying Murgi खुजली करती है और चूजे follow करते हैं. So I'm trying to do it on Hindi so that the Hindi audience can also pick it up. So how do we measure success? I think one of the things we want to feel is that, hey, as KOA members, we feel encouraged to follow the new calendar because we are promoting this calendar and we are providing you collateral and guidance around how to use this calendar, right? You should now feel encouraged that yes, there is a broader community. We have a critical mass now where people are following US-based calendar to encourage other folks to join this bandwagon. Now, consequences is if we don't align, right, then reality is just not technically correct, right, in observing our Hindu rituals. And we come from a very intellectual class who believes in science and also have a very strong cultural connections with calendars and all that. I mean, we should be the first person not to do anything technically incorrect. And I have a personal story on it that I'm going to mention it to you. That I used to also follow India-based calendar, but once I got married back in 2002, then I became a lot more interested in this calendar as I used to go to Hindu temple, and I realized that the Hindu temple in Bothal, which is nearby, had an actual dates based on US time zone, and they had one beautiful one-pager at the end explaining why we want to align it with US time zone. So this is not a Kashmiri Pandit problem. This is kind of what I call a Hindu problem. Even I'm pretty sure a lot of folks were still following India calendar. And that one pager was so beautifully written. I remember when I read it, it was so clear to me why it needs to be in a US time zone. Because I felt that there was one thing that always bugged me is that when my son is born, okay, I want to make sure that I know the current Tithi as per US time zone. Because if I rely on India time zone, there is a good chance that it may be incorrect. So that's why I was like, no, I need to make it sure. And then I made sure that every year I get that calendar from the Bothal temple. And then I made sure that I mark it at a US time zone when he was born. And interestingly, his name is Ashwin. He was born in the month of Ashwin at a Pansam, and I marked it on the US-based calendar to make sure it's technically correct. And I always follow Pansam for his birthday, because it's possible that if I had followed India calendar, it might have been Soram. So I told my mom, no, it is Pansam. We are going to follow Pansam for his birthday going forward, so that I know for sure I'm technically correct in observing his birthday as we come along. He's 18, by the way, now. So that was my personal story, why it's important to be technically correct. And then you also tell the same story to my son. Hey, you know what? I made sure that we follow it technically correct, and you also now make sure you follow it technically correct. And how does the success look like to me personally or to us? I mean, we are at the hand of the Hindus, right? We follow Surya Siddhanta, we follow all the principles of Hindu texts, and we need to connect with the broader Hindu diaspora. We cannot be lagging behind in that, right? If Hindu diaspora in Bothal, right, was celebrating as per the Bothal temple, we need to make sure we also celebrate at the same time, right? That answers cultural continuity, and we basically feel more connected to the broader Hindu diaspora. I will go to the next slide now. So this slide was inspired by my son. When I showed him, he wanted really comparison with other calendars because he's familiar with other calendars. There's a big Chinese diaspora here that follows a lunar calendar. In the schools, they are made aware there are different religious calendars like Jewish calendar. So I was like, okay, why does this calendar fit in our timeline, right? And I was amazed. I knew about it, but I never looked it in terms of comparison with other cultures. That was my son who kind of asked me to tell me how does it pair up with other calendars. So I first started with Hindu calendars. So there is something called Kalyug Samvat. It is supposed to be coronation of Yudhishthir, but it's not really widely used. Then is our Saptarishi Samvat, which interestingly, Uparji told me that it's the oldest Hindu Panchang is calendar, that is in active use. So you need to put pat on your back that we are actually still, with all the persecution, all the difficulties that we have faced over millennia, we have been able to sustain this calendar. That is incredible. And then it is supposed to be evolved during the Yudhishthira rule also in Mahabharata era. And how does it compare with Jewish calendar? Jewish calendar is current year is 5786 and Chinese calendar is 4722. And then we have another variations of it which are typically used in other parts of India, like Bikram Samvat is very commonly used. It's after. So these Samvats are basically beginning when people decide we need to start fresh. Samvats got Saimait, then you have a new Vat. So it's kind of Sanskrit and Kashmiri kind of rhyme there in terms of Samungavs to get together and Vatgav, a new beginning. So King Vikramaditya, one of the great kings in Hindu history, he basically started this one. And then there is one which is the official calendar of Government of India. That's called Shaka Samvat, is based on a Shaka king Kanishka. So it gives a relative perspective of different lunisolar calendars. Again, this is not purely lunar calendar because we do make adjustment, just like Jewish calendars make adjustment. Otherwise, you will run up with an extra month. And if you don't do the adjustment, then the problem you will happen ki my birthday aaj January, February, pati March, which will be practically impossible to follow. So we always make that adjustment, and other cultures also make that adjustment. So we are not unique in that sense. So now you go to the nitty-gritty, right? When rubber hits the road, what does it really mean? So you take the day. So day is our very granular, right? Start, right? Do. It's called Tithi in Hindi. In Kurshut, it's just called Do. It's basically, what is a Tithi in terms of Surya Siddhanta principle? It's basically the time for moon to move 12 degrees related to the sun. So we have it's a very simple math here. 360 of full, divide, right? 12 degrees. So every time you have a 12-degree movement, you have a do khut, right? Now, Achmanch is the part one. Aga Shukul Paksh and Krishan Paksh. Shukul Paksh is basically a waxing moon. Yat Kurshit Poetchivana is Zuna Paksh. The Krishan Paksh ka waning moon. Yat Kurshit Poetchivana is Gat Paksh. So Zun Pakshas mazi Punyam, it will be a full moon there. The Gat Pakshas mazi Mahavas, when will be a new moon there. And the terminology that we use in Kashmiri, it's again based on Sanskrit with Kashmiri kind of phonology in play. So Shivana first day will be Ogdo, Doi, Trai, and I will cover that bit in detail. Now the other thing is that why do tithis vary? That's the problem there, which makes it very interesting and confusing also, because though you should follow Karan, that's solar though, that's midnight to midnight. Very simple, Earth's rotation 24 hours. Day starts at 12 a.m., it ends on the next day at 12 a.m. No confusion, very straightforward. Earth problem, as compared to moon's rotation, it has an elliptical orbit, right? It's not rotating, it's basically revolving around the Earth, and that's where we are taking these measurements. And it has an elliptical orbit. So that means that at some places it's much closer to Earth, so that angular momentum there is a Kepler law that came into play. It will move faster. Yuta ye nazdeek hai, it will move faster. Yuta ye path hai, it has to move a little slower because the angular momentum has to remain the same. It varies between kunvu to shatvu hour. Now, if you see, now you will see the problem happening, right? Actually, you should solar day, so map karanke. Maybe problem you शतवु घंटे तो सकी ऐसे मतलब इसे सोलर दो खुद आप इस घंटे ज्यादा तो ऐसे तो बे काम तो ऐसे so that's why it makes it very interesting and you have to do a lot more calculations around making sure you get it right and average duration through घंटे 37 minutes but short end and long end now if you see right it cannot align with 24 hour solar day because achu kunu to shatu घंटे variation right. And the other thing you need to understand is that it can start at any time of the day, like the solar day. Mala you say दोन to 2 बजे to start गए ये say कि शाम को 5 बजे to start गए आज का start and end as such in terms of fixed. Because it's based on that 12-degree rotation. Yuta is ये मोकला is 12-degree rotation. तब use marking as that will be the end of the tithi. But then it's not practically possible to follow that calendar because imagine कि वो म्योन वो गए शाम को 5 बजे start तो पत मकली 2 सुबह 8 बजे right. That's not practically possible to follow. So to make it simple, we just follow sunrise to sunrise as per the Surya Vedanta principle. So kind of bar degree, that's correct. But you see, actual in terms of practical purpose, if you can follow karo fa kuch thaun ya wo chumanaw ya kahan te festival chumanaw is karo so sunrise to sunrise. As the sun is visible, you can see it physically, and you can basically decide to do khud. And at the time, uti byak sunrise ke do mokle. It makes it very simple and practical to use. Otherwise, it's going to be really just jantari chandas mastavi, and it will be a nightmare to follow it, right? So that is one way we have tried to make it very usable. Again, I think it's just re-emphasizing what I covered in the previous slide. I will just brush through it. It's just a repetition, but in more kind of a very crisper format. Fixed at 24 hours, varies, determines by Earth rotation, moon's revolution, which is elliptical orbit. And it's about simple, by to next day, but it can start at any time of a day, depending upon moon position. This is very simple to timekeeping, but this one we based it on sunrise and sunrise. That's why the sunrise becomes very important. And the sunrise will vary across the world, right? Because Earth is rotating. It will start sunrise in Japan first, then it will take a while till it goes to India, Patlagantad Bay, 7 ghante to go to the west coast, Patlagantad Bay, you go to Hawaii, right? But anyway, as currently time zone, Hawaii time zone, because my son asked, hey, US was going to come 7 time zone. Because they are so chewing at Taifi, but which agar Atkara is promote to Patkara 7 time zone. So this one is kind of very straightforward in that sense. It kind of covers the previous slide. And then there is this concept of Adhik Mas, which is, that's why you have to make adjustment around add karo diary. Otherwise, because he had 354 days, he had 365 days. So adjustment, but that's a separate topic that will take another presentation. So now I'm going to try to explain it because sometimes it's really hard to really understand this because what you see on Jantri is numbers, right? Right? That's what you see. That's why sometimes it's very hard to visualize it because our Jantri, the problem so in Jantri is very text-based. Unless you have a diagram, right? It's always hard to really understand. The reason I was able to pick up that Bothal Hindu temple because the most up to description, then they actually had a diagram showing how to read the calendar. Because one thing I got always used to get confused, doesn't make any sense. Ghante right? So the way you read, so first I will show you how to read it and then how to kind of map it visually, how you kind of map it, and it will all fall in place. It's not that hard actually once you understand the format of it. So I wanted to take it simple. So I took the January, and this is PST time zone, your PDF. It should basically January 8 was Tuesday, very simple. Ishavan as Tamdos, Mavas, Amavasya. The end time. So always think this number is always the end time when the day ends. So this Tithi technically ended at 28:35. Now you will say 28:35 kya? This is not a military time because it ends at 24 military, right? What you do is that you add another. So if you basically take 28:35, subtract it by 4, आज क्या रोज है? 4:35 a.m. So you Tithi, right? Yele basically Bushongus Tuesday Shamnas, right? Mitralar. The ye Tithi Mokle Subch Sur Baje 5 a.m. Now Buchu Shenge Titness, El Bushongus Tamaktas ye Mavas, right? Buchu Shenge one Subch Sur Baje will Shenge Tosus. You do also already 29, you Mokle. You Mokle car Subch Sur Baje 4:35 a.m. You mokle rachi bhai baj ke ichun ke achuka sae atham bhai baj mokle man kya bois ni ichun te ichun sunrise to sunrise. But anyway, yetnes mokle, right? One uthibu vothus 29th and those Wednesday lej raat kyuthi me which sunrise os yetis 7 baj ke 20 minute. Amoktosi already while lejmus pratham ogdo slogmut gam yamono ogdo yamdo. So it's sunrise to sunrise, but here which you kya gaye? You guys start which I don't know yet, I have to go one day back, but it ended at here. But you see byak dosta emis like bar degree complete karnas you mokle 2:40 pe subah ke the byak do mokle actually zagant broad, right? But Utivan Yandre what? Tamokchume Wuchun, you can ice Tamakai, Doyam Legend. So that's how you have to visualize it. It's a Rat Kyuk Moklan, Yimakli Doyle, but it is what of Tamak was the in existence. Jantri Chuchin end time. Always look at end time. Agar you Atho so your rise after you subtract, you got the Subuk. That's pretty much it. That's once you understand that. Pachu Nakshatra, that's a little complicated. You don't need to go there. Actually, we just focus on do because we follow Chahe so Arthama Istan, Navama Istan, Vorvo Istan, we always follow the do. We don't typically look at Nakshatra, but that's a separate one. So, but just follow this. And time was, which are at least Asa and Jantri, but Surya Uday Taliket. So you can kind of correlate and it will make all sense. But for you, right, you don't care. If you follow PST time zone calendar, Tuesday, you don't need to even look at this. That's just if you are interested in figuring it out. This is all abstracted. So this is an abstraction layer. You just look at the date, know which time zone you are in. If you are in Pacific time zone, check your Pacific time zone Jantri. If you are in Central time zone, check your Central time zone Jantri. If you are in India time zone, check the India time zone Jantri and just follow that day. Nothing, you don't need to overthink about it. Just let the subject matters do the work. And obviously those subject matters will make sure that it all aligns. It's all math. It cannot go wrong, right? So just go with that leap of faith. Once you understand how it works, it's pretty straightforward. So that was my attempt to explain it. I know it's still hard to explain, but I tried my best to explain it in a way that always think 12 degree. And then when it ends, sunrise, very important. Sunrise is very important in this Jantri. Sunrise to sunrise. When to expand on that, I wanted to double down on this example because this was an example that personally hit me recently. Nimara auntie, Temishu Vorvodasan, Po, Ertham Dochasan, but Utam Dochasan, Ertham, Do Asan is Vorvod. Mega Nimara, which is Jantri, right? Yes, Pacific time zone Jantri. Acha Chavan, Monday though. And Monday's lunch was India. So Sunday Shamnas was me Persada Medo Bakaremus Mubarak actually guys khosh. Memara Koremus Mubarak, WhatsApp aspect. So within 5 minutes, our message went a cousin to choose. Hey, mummy ka birthday kal hai. Medo bhai yaar ye kya gadbad ga. The Padwuj mein calculation India's Bondosi kar. Yet was Monday, January 6th. But which you yet cars? January 7. Gav gadbad itinas. So because this is also correct, this is also correct. But when you India's month, agar me auntie India's month, they have to follow India Jantri. Temis khatar she has to celebrate it on Bamwardo January 7. But agar so yete I say menish. Bukara temis motivate. आज she से war both कैस की ये भी है तो उनके घर से follow. But आप तो चुप but interesting because no daddy on the argument it's migratory bird. अगर ये टीचर ऐसा कर इंडिया हम तो फॉलो करें तो सोचो पानी मर्जी पेरेंटन खतर it can be both ways, they can argue both ways, they will say India पे ठाम will continue to follow there, but that's something you will have to figure out with your parents, but technically if you are living here then you will follow this Jantri. So then it goes into explaining of why it basically was in January 7th and January 6th, right? Now, what happened ki, if you look at the Ashtami, right? Years, Lajmut, India's month January 6th. January 6th. Monday though, ये गई start 6:23 p.m. ठीक है, but तमक तो उठी 6:23 p.m. was India Sunday शाम न चाय वाय मम्मी चावन बोसु तमक तो शेंग थी ये right, but उठी वो तो ये years already legends है, but India's month रात इसलिए तिमन पे next day प्रारंभ, but बुमा प्रारंभ कैसे में चले legends ये थी, so I celebrated it on Monday में तो फाक Monday though. हालांकि मुझे ना फाक था but whatever ritual we followed that on Monday, mummy unkor Tuesday though. So this should explain it. I mean, you can go over the slide. It's very straightforward. Just to reiterate, yes, you parchuchu you do my daddy specifically me to explain karun me suis the at India and Jantri on the work to how human Pacific time zone, because this hit me personally and then I have to explain to my cousin the US time zone to thoda different. I'm sorry about that. I will be mindful next time around. The Byakshi is you should, which I personally feel ki but we should also know ki Tithi hi nav kya, right? And these are Sanskrit based, Hindi is almost same, Kurshut is same. And this is, see, unlike if you look at Gregorian calendar, a lot of the names are based on kings, right? The king started some July, then though Julius Caesar gave July, Augustus got Augustus. But our calendar is just based on the actual natural movement of Earth against the celestial sphere, right? It's based on very logic, right? It's not based on arbitrary. King Chujan and it's not like that, right? So if you look at the months, right, it's based on these constellations or nakhet, right? So Achivana Chetar in Hindi, I will say the Kashmiri Hindi, you will figure it out. Vaishak, Padga, Zed, Padga Har is also called Ashad. Haratam is very important festival to us. Zetatam is very important festival to us. Shravan, they Shravan Puninge, Raksha Bandha, Padga Baidirpat, Atmasge Road, Panvan, Padga Ashud. Padga Karthik, Padga Magar, Padga Pohas Mansge, May Gadbat Vagara, Padga Mag, Tush Badutam to Vimange, Padga Fagunge, Hera. So one has to also kind of memorize some of these months. Chetur, Veshak, Zed, Har, Shravan, Badirpat, Ashur, Karthik, Magar, Po, Mag, Fagun. Padge Do is very interesting. See, in ancient cultures, basically, every celestial body that was moving was considered to be a planet, right? So there are 7 planets. Actually, 9, now Grevana, because Rahu and Ketu Thaman. But the logic is the same even in ancient, even in the current calendar. Sunday ge Atvar, based on sun. Atvar, Padge Chandarvar. Chandarvar is moon. Padge Bomvar, right? That's Mars. Padge Bodhvar, that is your Bodhvar ge Bodh. I think Venus, Braswar, the Mercury. Braswar, Padge Shakurwar, the Padge Batwar. It's interesting. I was talking to Upar. I just felt me, see, if you look at Hindi calendar, Ache Shanivar, because it's based on Saturn, right? But we have decided to name it after us. We call it Batwar. And I don't know why. If somebody can tell me, that will be interesting. We literally changed the name with our, or it was just a day of knowledge. That can also be an explanation. But it's not called Shanivar in Kashmiri, it's called Batwar. The Badge Tithi Do, very straightforward, Ogdo, Dwai, Trai, Soram, Pansam, Shayan, Satam, Ertam. Ertam is a variety. Zunapash, the Gatapash. So we always keep fast on the Shukul Paksh ki Ashtami ko hum vrat rakhte hain. और कृष्ण पक्ष की अष्टमी के दिन हम व्रत नहीं रखते हैं, तो इसमें महीने में एक ही व्रत हम रखेंगे, वो शुक्ल पक्ष की है, जो जून पक्ष कहते हैं कश्मीरी में. पदगे नवम दहम काहम बाहम पदगे त्रुविश स्वादिष्ट पुण्यम, पुण्यम तो अमावस, सो पूर्णिमा और अमावस्या. So this is kind of straightforward. The only variation is in the last one. We'll call it punyam for a full moon and maavas for a new moon. That's it. So this gives you a concept of tithi, ryath, var. The reason is very important because when you have to celebrate birthday, right? So you one attack say panun tithi when you panun var when you do when you bar when you var when you need to know these names to recite as you are doing Karam Kand, right? Because that's very central for birthday puja, Shivratri puja. Shivratri, chalo, that date is fixed, but for birthday puja it will vary for every person. So you need to know this calendar, and you can say it in Sanskrit also or Hindi also, it doesn't matter. But you need to know the actual date following the Hindu calendar when you are doing your Karam Kand, right? You can't say today is Monday, Feb 8th. That wouldn't really technically be correct. You have to use the calendar, the Hindu calendar, to recite that day. So now it's more about summary, right? Okay, theek hai, Anil Hashia ne bataya, but what next, right? How can we get this Jantri, right? And it's kind of summary of what I discussed. So what is the objective, right? I mean, we want folks to get energized and follow US-based Tithi and not rely on India time zone based Tithi, because then that would not be technically correct. And how do we prevent them from doing that? We're just encouraging them. We're giving them options. So this is more about giving you options. At the end, right, whatever reasons you have, you still want to follow India calendar, as my dad said, it's a migratory bird, as India I follow, that's fine too. It's up to you. This is a choice. The choice given to you that you don't have to now, in my case, I had to go to Bothal Hindu temple to actually get that calendar to market. But now I'm happy that I have a PDF, and Uparji's, under Uparji's leadership, we are also printing the actual Jantri, because one of the things I was always kind of didn't feel happy is कि मतलब मम्मी चुप रहा है आ PDF बस क्या करे बेटे Jantri आसिन मतलब Jantri ये चल तो वो तेलता वो जेबी Jantri मतलब यार ये confusion का सा या पर चुप से दबा बकर अमेरिका follow but चुप से था जेबी so blue Jantri there is that. And I was like, no, I think we need to have a physical copy. And I'm glad that Uparji had already decided that this initiative, we need to do it. So, yeah, I think this one is clear, like we need to follow Hindu diaspora, right? And how do I know I followed correctly? Now, that's the main part, right? So you have a number of options. One is a calendar uses Karanch, and Upar will talk more about it. You see calendar is the one uses library pet, yeah, fishes pets, which a lot of people still use. They don't use the typical Jammu Jantri. So calendar use the live pets lagawan, you see preach melan. So I is now aligned to US time zones. When they put hey yaar achu 4 time zone, ye gets confusion ta 4 entry thai. But actually analysis karmas ki atmas asan probably 1 or 2% of do asan in thoda time zone variation asan, but 98% asan same. Yet no so variation is Tinus thao at lagavis ke asterisks ya kya laga ho se yaar acho thoda variation, so that folks are aware. Otherwise kana store calendar publish karen, which doesn't make any logical sense, okay? Because it's a physical copy, right? So we want to reduce our cost, right? And increase our operational efficiency. So that is a calendar chuta option used by free mail. Yeah, if you see PDF is divan is so a PDF, tomorrow kasno continue. Tachan couldn't change. In PDF to digital format, a lot of people love digital form. It's easy, exijai root, yadam ko check. Kasi Jantri much chandas man saka inside. But for PDF to phone us में तो कुछ, but Jantri option to chuvain available. It's a printed, buzzet printed option I swear. Atman chu winken currently च क्या था saji page. But Atmas kara वैसे पूजा part what the kara add around roughly आखत आख याखत Upar has a final decision on it with the help of Puneet ji is karo ye Jantri, it will be basically as niche paper kya. Right now it is niche paper where you have basically the war, but it will be a lot more elaborate because we'll take some of the good things in these current Jantri years. Because India's was you format to touch come se kam aata to sheet page. But this will be obviously you can't make it that thick. It's kind of customized for US specific taste and they have the main puja part it mara kara hota hai first class point demo hota hai but acha order karen it's basically demand and supply you said demand actually the Puneet ji get is a supply right so so इसलिए जो link there I think this link has already been promoted but we need to double down and tell folks that Feb 15 is the due date कैसे actually nowadays I think जो I think 29 we want folks कैसे आज तेली मतलब ये तो nowadays thalas पर थे right that's why we want to make sure कि why तो तब बैठे and we'll make it happen this is a very top one of the top priorities or initiatives from Anupar's leadership is to get this calendar up and running and I was like yes let's do it we can do it so we have to do it we need a lot more enthusiasm we need a lot more online order copies and let's make it happen acho bara sponsorship to welcome acho link वगैरह लिखे you can also I think that calendars में अगर तो याद आए so that is now ताल लिखे ना आसान so you can support that Jantri to say to sponsor period I think Gopal can give you a lot more details on that so so that's pretty much it. I think I finished on time and thanks for having such a patience to listen. I hope I was able to convince you to follow a US time zone Jantri. Thanks for your time. It was fun. I really enjoyed speaking to my own brethren and community. I've never done it in this emphatic manner. I'm a comedian at heart. Whenever I have done acts, they have been comic acts. This is for the first time I'm trying to do something intellectually stimulating and get folks energized, and especially youngsters energized by following our US-based time zone calendar. Thanks for your presentation. I will like Upar to take the floor and we can have Q&A sessions and let's make it interactive. Ask your burning questions, share your thoughts, speak freely. Your voice matters. Community voice matters. Okay, Mara, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anil ji. Fantastic, very passionate and very educational session. Thank you so much. We also have Puneet ji here. Puneet ji, namaskar, Mara.
I'll stop sharing. Do you want to continue sharing or?
Yeah, you can stop sharing. Puneet ji, anything you want to supplement, complement what Anil ji covered? Any key highlights from your side?
Anil ji had done a lot of work on this particular subject. I can feel that कि उन्होंने काफी काम किया है इस सब्जेक्ट पे और बहुत अच्छे से उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किया हाउ तिथिज वर्क हाउ व्हाट आर शुक्ल पक्ष एंड कृष्ण पक्ष कैसे तिथि चेंज होती है कैसे बाकी चीज सप्तऋषि संवत के बारे में एंड इनफैक्ट उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से ये प्रेजेंट किया it was really very good interaction with him.
Thank you.
Excellent. Chali, let's open up the floor. Maybe I can promote everybody as a panelist. It's not so that we can make it more interactive. If anybody has any questions, please you can raise your hands.
GS question. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Labmo, I think somebody has a question here.
Labmo, yeah. Labmo is the first one that has raised hand. Yeah, go ahead, please. Labmo. Hello, Labmo. Hello, you are on mute for some reason. I mean, probably you are speaking when you are
to unmute. Okay, I'm.
So much unmute करो नहीं मैं.
मैंने मेरे साइड से तो.
I think we can go with Renuka ji then.
Renuka ji.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having this session because I have been on Upahars, every time when the thought about having the US-based Jantri started, I was all for it because my son, who's a physicist, he was like, Mom, it doesn't make sense. And he really wanted to convert the Jantri and create his own Jantri. So it's really going to be helpful for our newer generation. And the other thing I had asked Upar for, I said, I look at the Jantri and I don't understand how the Tithis work, how the Saath works, how does the Deva Dev thing work? Because I go and ask sometimes my parents, and sometimes my parents also don't know as to why a certain day is good and a certain day is bad. So I would like a more in-depth session into understanding this Jantri. This is a great start. Really, really appreciate it. And we'd like to continue some of these sessions to understand the meaning behind it. And I'm sure that my son would also like to understand how it works, because we cannot ask them to blindly follow something that we have been doing for so long unless we give them the scientific truth behind it. So really, really appreciate the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venkaji. So we'll take that as an action. Puniji, Taishu, can quick comment on that part?
Yes, I would like to address this particular question of Renuka ji. As far as this Devadev is concerned, whenever if you go to the through the Jantri, there are sunrise and sunset is already mentioned there. If, for example, any tithi, which suppose Ugdo is and ending, the timings mentioned just adjacent to the tithi is the ending moment time. So whenever Ugdo is, for example, Ugdo is ending uh, at midnight. So whenever any tithi crosses the sunset time, so that tithi is Pravut, yeah, which we call Pravut. And for that particular day, Shraddh will be Apne Din. But when तिथि corresponding तिथि is देव यानी कि देवादेव जो जिसे हम बोलते हैं, वो तिथि जब पहले सनसेट से पहले ही समाप्त हो गई, वो देवादेव कहलाया जाता है, और उस दिन का श्राद्ध पहले दिन आ जाता है. So Devadev, there is no rocket science in this. Just we need to see this, read this Jantri slowly and steadily. We will know how to read it. But the issue is we people keep this Jantri for Navrethal, and then it goes to our bookshelf. We never read this. So I personally request everyone, whenever you are having this hard copy of the Jantri, kindly go through this. Once we start reading it, you will automatically come to know what is Tithi, what is Nakshatra, what is Dratponsuk, how to read it.
Thank you, Puniji. Acha, मैं जो ask question actually, let me also use the opportunity. तो normally in तिथि च आज sunrise करण determine कि कौस तिथि ये मानत एंड दो, है ना? तो can you touch upon मैं जो हेरत ची invasion? हेरत असमंस चा same logic लगान ताची त्रयोदशी आसान, मगर does that same thing work sunrise की ताचु क्या अलग आसान?
नहीं, देखो, हर एक वैदिक सनातन धर्म में हर एक चीज का निर्धारण जो होता है ना, ये मेरे कहने से नहीं होगा. इट इज ऑल डॉक्यूमेंटेड. वॉट एवर, जैसे अभी मैंने आपको बोला श्राद्ध निर्धारण का, दैट इज डॉक्यूमेंटेड हाउ टू सी श्राद्ध टू सोलमनाइज ऑन विच तिथि. ठीक है, इसी तरह से हमारे फेस्टिवल्स हैं, फेस्टिवल्स का भी इट इज ऑल डॉक्यूमेंटेड. As far as Herath is concerned, it is Herath में main criteria होता है त्रयोदशी. त्रयोदशी should be at midnight, यानी कि रसिंस 12 बज गए आसिन त्रयोदशी. येमिदोर यथ डेटस मंस, मतलब जो जॉर्जियन कैलेंडर के डेट के हिसाब से जिस रात को, अर्धरात्रि को त्रयोदशी होगी, उसी दिन हेरत सोलमनाइज की जाएगी, हेरत मनाई जाएगी. यानी कि मैं तो हर कुछ फेस्टिवल पन अक डिसाइडिंग क्राइटेरिया आसा सुच. हाँ,
Got
तो
it.
हाँ, उसी का त्रयोदशी इज द डिसाइडिंग फैक्टर फॉर हेयर या तवै वना हेयर त्रुवा. but
अगर
simultaneously,
रात का तो कुछ अर्धरात्रि basically as वो चुन
and now my bahkar mokli to truakar lagi. That is the reason. Sometimes it comes on Dwadashi and sometimes it comes on Trayodashi. Kyaski samapti kal kun saat cha asan bah mokle, for example, आज go नईम तारीख शाज suppose आज ची द्वादशी चला द्वादशी खत्म हो रही है suppose 5 बजे शाम के अत पटले त्रुआ that means आज रात क्युत 12 बजे आसि त्रुआ त्रयोदशी चला so here is for example agar वह द्वादशी मौकले है रात सिंज 1 बजे या 2 बजे is रात क्युत यानी कि 9th intervening night of 9th and 10th suppose द्वादशी मौकले है 1 बजे रात सिंज तेली है न हैरत आज के तेली है पगा यानी कि पग किस डेटस मंज कर है शिफ्ट. So there are some deciding factors which govern every festival.
Got it. No, that was really helpful, Puneet. Thank you.
So far, I want to add something, right? This is kind of my personal opinion on this. So sometimes we kind of tie ourselves on the knots, right? We let the subject matter take expert. For us, agar actually hear that means everything has been sorted out. That's an implementation layer, right? We don't really want to care, right? Actually, API is going to use because we trust. It's all based on trust. Obviously, Puneetji is going to use the existing principles and all that stuff there, right? Because if we try to kind of start figuring it ourselves, there will always be a problem because sometimes subjective variation so there will be difference of opinion. Just go with one. He has already done his work, right? Let's follow that, right? I know academically you are interested on that's fine too, but it's just that's what I tell folks. Actually, just follow it and move on, right? Especially these, like Herat can be controversial. Kyaski Akshu concept of na Ardratri hon. Satam because people satam. There are subtle variations. But as far as birthday is concerned, as far as other things, there is no variation there. But the festivals can have little nuance there.
And absolutely, Anilji, I think that's given at the end. We have to trust.
Yeah.
But I think with rational and logic, I think it just establishes that.
Correct. Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, maybe we can have like another session where we can have a conversation. Then we put it in a format. We can take it to the next step. As one though. What about the nakhetra? Like there are a lot of other nuances. That will be also an interesting session because then once you have that Jantri, right, you have the baseline is based on trust, then we can expand on other topics. But first is you have to basically agree yes, we have to follow the US time zone Jantri. And secondly, that it's based on trust. Puneet ji has done all the work. We can't question that. If the actually Pacific time zone is special, you are that, you just go with it. That's kind of my take on it.
You should basically I agree that it is a trust, but simultaneously I have to make sure that I am presenting a correct picture in front of you people. मतलब ये शुन कि बवान पागा suppose कुंजाई before finalizing this year calendar also I am मतलब in touch with Kohl साहब Satyabhushan ji. So I make sure कि इन कुंजाई का गलती गैसे I मतलब तमिक स्कोप गैस ना आसन कुन साथ च हेका proofreading mistakes हेकन गैसित but whenever you are dealing with such festivals and you have to be very sure कि गलती गैस न गासें आत्मस.
No, I agree. I mean, that's why, like, I looked at all the work, right? It was spot on. There was no variation. With Jimmy Jantri, exact match, right? So, but yeah, I agree. There might be typos, unintentional.
No, वो होता रहता है. वो उसमें that time we have to accept कि answer का use होता है थोड़ा सा IST based Jantri मंस के गम्स ये mistakes गम्स एक इस festivals मंस we had to accept that. मतलब if you have to keep the trust of the people, then you have to simultaneously put a corrigendum for that.
बढ़िया.
US as mentioned ke confusion Puniji, right? Actually, Punsu February is the Herat.
Yes, yes,
So
yes, yes,
across all time zones. So at least
yes,
we are good on that front.
yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
And
Any questions?
for
Sorry.
your information, I'm just adding some more muhurats for US based calendars. Last year, I remember we had 3-4 muhurats only. एक तो विवाह यज्ञोपवीत हाउस वार्मिंग मतलब गृह प्रवेश तो बेस शायद 5-7 तो यूथ में तथ मज बे ऐड करमित 2-3 मुहूर्त छ बे ऐड तथ करमित so it will be a very good मतलब
Excellent.
vehicle also will be there. Vehicle also will be there.
Excellent. Thank you, Puniji. I think Vinod Rana ji, you had a comment or question?
Actually, namaskar. Thank you. This is such a useful session. मैं उस ये सवाल मेखले मुतलक अगर I know Yamvedic when you see new Jantri that means in dates the is it possible for the next year you can still generate those dates
For which month?
no, for the year
No, it is very actually IST based Jantri लगा कम से कम 7-8 रेत बनावनस and Murat is very sophisticated issue. So next year, तो when you make kus रेत, I can personally address to that particular month, but complete Jantri आसम मतलब गैस नु उन्हें possible के.
अच्छा
हाँ, you can tell me which month you require, so I will work on that.
Okay. तो बेस में मेखले बैठे एक सवाल उस कुछ वेद जो follow करान for vehicle
ये लोगाक्ष की पद्धति के हिसाब से ही हम हमारा जो मेखला पद्धति है वो उसी के हिसाब से है
तो मगर वेद को इशा कृष्ण यजुर्वेद को ये कुछ विषय
ये जो कर्मकांडुक विषय में पे आती वुचुन इट इज कर्मकांड के रिलेटेड है मगर है जितना भी हमारी जो पद्धति है कर्मकांड पद्धति है ये लोगाक्ष के बेस पे है
अच्छा ओके बेस आजकल बे ये साउथ इंडियन टेम्पल्स मज तम दपान अगर न कह डेट मतलब नो जनरली ये दपान वीकेंड से पे मिले कह डेट तो यह पॉसिबल कि तुम हेकू जनरेट कर कह डेट विच सूट्स टू सम पर्टिकुलर डे तम करान दैट्स व्हाई आई एम आस्किंग आई डोंट नो यह में पॉसिबल कि
नहीं we as far as Yagnopavit is concerned, as far as Viva is concerned या मतलब engagements are concerned, हम specifically लिखते हैं इसमें जंत्री में कि this has to be done on an auspicious day. Apart from हाँ वंचिक के दोच वंच फर्स्ट नवरात्रा चैत्र का जो नवरात्रा जो अप्रैल में आता है बसंत पंचमी दीपावली यम छ स्वयं सिद्ध मुहूर्त तो या अक्षय तृतीया यम छ स्वयं सिद्ध मुहूर्त हको यम चीज करित मगर हर का वही वीकेंडस पर तेल के तेलने रोज न सरदा मतलब आई डोंट वांट टू
I was surprised I was surprised to hear that कि वो यम छ दपान इस करो इस हको डेट के जनरेट करित which suits your so but I wasn't convinced मैं तो today was a perfect meeting कि याद मजाक भी confirm कर रहे थे
हाँ ताथ में से अगर इस वुचो कि विंचु मतलब बुवानो तो गणती बटवार इशन बटवार दो मेकल करान की सो गो गणती ऐती सैटरडे पे हो Tuesday we avoid throughout India वुचु तो Tuesdays and मंस चितिम लगन करा क्या इसके ऐशना ऐशे पानिंग there is lot of difference between throughout India panchangs and Kashmiri पंचांग उसमें काफी डिफरेंस है सो देवादेव छुन थ्रू आउट इंडिया वुचुन त कुन्य पंचांगस मज देवादेव यूज करा बट ओनली कश्मीरी पंडित्स वी यूज
अच्छा स्पेशली मेखल तो खानदरस वन ये मतलब मेखल मज हावन होत पत क्रूल खारुन ये देवगन ये मजरा तो यह दो अमे हिसाब तमी दैट्स व्हाई यू नो दपान अगर अलाइन गसन
अगर if you want to go according to the Kashmiri पद्धति, then there has मतलब यम च त्रे चीज जरूरी करें साथ मज दिवगोन तो मतलब योनिक साथ युस च आसान सु च that has to be on the auspicious time.
Okay.
On the
Okay.
topic of मेखल, अगर 3 बच्चों की हम इकट्ठे मेखल कर रहे हैं, I was told कि इनका देखना होता है कि बिना दिन की ये क्या है, राशि क्या है. So अगर 3 बच्चों की एक ही दिन करेंगे तो किसकी राशि देखेंगे हम?
वो जरूर देखिए उसमें देखिए लोकाचार आ जाता है. एज सच अगर एक ही गोत्र के तीनों बच्चे हैं तो उसमें कुछ नहीं है. अब ये थोड़ा सा ना अब लोकाचार था. जब हम कश्मीर से बाहर आ गए यहाँ पे ये प्रचलन ज्यादा है राशि राशि अनुसार देखना. ये पहले अगर आप देखेंगे ना पुरानी जो जंत्रियां होती थी उसमें आप देखोगे राशि अनुसार नहीं होता. उसमें एक कॉमन यज्ञोपवीत के मुहूर्त होते थे, विवाह मुहूर्त होते थे, बाकी इम्पोर्टेंट मुहूर्त होते थे. बट हाँ ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ टाइम अब हम कश्मीर से बाहर आ गए. वहाँ कश्मीर में आपने कभी मंगल दोष नहीं सुना होगा, मंगलिक नहीं सुना होगा. ये लोकाचार का इफेक्ट है. हाँ अब राहु काल हम पहले कहाँ फॉलो करते थे बट नाउ ए डेज हम राहु काल मेंशन कर रहे हैं अपनी जंत्र में. हो गया लोकाचार. यानी कि अब जो साउथ इंडियन जैसे बेंगलोर कर्नाटका में जो कश्मीरी पंडित हैं वो राहु का वो स्पेसिफिकली हमें मेल करते थे या डिटेल मांगते थे यार हमें राहु काल की डिटेल्स दे दीजिए. तो अगर बच्चे 3 हैं या 4 हैं उसमें कोई राशि अनुसार. हाँ अब अभी विवाह मुहूर्त है. विवाह में भी लड़के की ये दोनों में से एक की राशि ये जरूरी नहीं है राशि अनुसार का.
Thank you.
एक ऑस्पिशियस टाइम होना चाहिए वो ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है. हम ऑस्पिशियस टाइम पे वो चीज को सोलमनाइज करें वो ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है एज कंपेयर टू राशि अनुसार.
Beshamara, any questions? Any comments?
It was a great session, Upharji, Urvashi this side. And I think we need more of this. A person like me, I'm a black sheep in my family. So I need to literally have like more and more sessions of this. So actually, like how to look at that Saath. I think Anil ji said that we'll have more sessions on this. I would definitely be interested in knowing how to look for Muhurat and all that, you know. Drat pਹੁੰਚ karch lagan, kem saath jaan saath, kem saath, you know, all that. That will be a good session, I think, moving forward.
No, definitely, Urushi ji, you know, that's one of the actions for us to do a follow-up deep dive based on the interest levels. Yeah, I think today's objective was like, you know, let's get the basics in place, and but I'm glad that you know we were able to deliver on that. And yes, as a follow-up, we will definitely do another deep dive.
Upaji, one question. Yamuruch KO calendar to be PDF. You can get Jantri. I can order when it will made available.
So, Basmara, you know, we are actually working on both the fronts on the calendar as well as a Jantri. Our goal is by end of the month, we have these sort of, you know, all finalized with the content and ready to print. And, you know, in March, we want to basically start the shipping so that you have it available before Navre.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I think, do I see anybody raising hands? No.
Sorry. Yeah, just to Urvashi's point, right? So the first goal is we energize people to even start looking, right? Once we get that critical mass, then we can take it to the next level. That's the important, right? You start actually buying the physical copy and generate that critical mass and energy, right? And then Puneet ji will also be excited to kind of drill down more on other topics, right? Because it's a vast subject, right? Can't be covered in one day. But the first is, hey, we need to generate a demand for this for right reasons, and we have the right reasons. More about building energy within the community. Yeah, I'll let Upar now kind of conclude. Looks like there's no other question.
Yeah, I think we don't have any further questions here. Any last call? Awesome. I think we're just about time as well. Thank you so much, Anil ji. Thank you so much, Puneet ji. Satyabhushan ji, Toymar can comments. I see you are unmuted. Anything from your side, Satyabhushan ji?
Yeah, yeah, it has been started, and there are some points where those will not matter in this. Only when there are questions, then we will replace them. But the question is that the audience is very little, like nobody is on any question ourselves. Then that's the whole thing. 2 or 3 persons, I expect at least there will be 20, 30%. So we have taken a turn to reply them. Say, please give once, I myself once, and then we will solve the problem. So that is why. But the questions, participants are not so much in present. So that's not.
Hello, Mara. That's a positive sign. I think,
They should have a board bar issue. Well, it has been started by Mr. Hashia. Well, after final points, how a tithi is made. You have to make people understand how a tithi is formed. That is the whole thing. In that tithi gets a forum that is on how Puniji works on that in his Jantri. Tithi kit per this forum. So those are the basic things. Baka se pata se sorry. Main these lessons for the audience is how a tithi is formed, and that proves that it's a must to be followed. Okay. So we two essential things, Shafna. There are two essential things that tithi are formed. Tithis are formed between moon, earth, and sun. These are the three planets. So moon himself plays a vital role in the lunar calendar. Solar calendar, there is no consideration of moon at all. No consideration at all. You go straight away, give sunrise, sunset, finish that story. But in lunar calendar, you have to go all through this. And how those tithis are formed, you have to just look into that, how it is possible. It depends on the motion of the moon and around the sun, around the earth, and that is the whole problem. So that gives you tithi, that gives you the first tithi, that gives you the 30 tithis in a month. And then, as Mr. Anil said, that there are 15 days of Krishna Paksha festival, that is right. The question is how Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha are formed. You have to make people understand how it is possible. So I think the audience was not too much to go. You can go ahead with whatever happened today. You end it on a good note. So next time, if there are questions also, we will have to tackle that too. That's all.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Satyabhushan ji.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I think we can wrap up today's session. Thank you so much, Saini, for joining in, and we will send the recording to everybody. And if there is any follow-up, feel free to email us. Thank you. Namaskar.
Okay.
Yeah.